Less than 20 minutes from now, the Soyuz engines will ignite on the MS-24. It'll be a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde deorbit burn to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit. 28 minutes after the burn, there will be an automatic pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz vehicle as the descent module begins its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, plasma heating around the vehicle rising to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. As the Soyuz approaches the landing site, there will be an automatic sequence triggered to deploy a series of chutes, first an extraction chute, then drogue chutes, and then the main parachute that will deploy about 15 minutes before touchdown, enabling the Soyuz to gently land on the steppe of Kazakhstan. The landing site is about 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, where the NASA, Roscosmos, and Rosaviatsa search and recovery teams are currently gathered, ready to board a half a dozen Russian Mi-8 helicopters for the 30 to 35-minute flight to the landing zone, where they will begin a circular pattern around the landing zone itself, waiting for the arrival of the Soyuz under its parachute. Once the Soyuz touches down, those recovery forces will begin to make their way toward the spacecraft, and the process of extracting the crew one by one, placing them in medical chairs and comfortable chairs outside of the capsule so that they can have a few minutes to regain their land legs and their equilibrium before they're carried into a nearby inflatable medical tent for preliminary medical exams and to get out of those Sokol launch and entry suits into more comfortable clothing. The three crew members will then board three individual helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, where they will split up, O'Hara boarding a NASA jet for the return flight to Houston, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for their flight back to their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. As we approach the 15-minute mark before the start of the deorbit burn, again, Novitsky is the Soyuz commander under the call sign of Kazbeki that he has called his spacecraft. He will be told by the Russian flight control team in Korolyov to transmit the pressure readings and the duration of the burn and the progress of the burn as it is executed, again, a 4-minute, 41-second deorbit burn to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second. 28 minutes after the deorbit burn will be the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz, the orbital module, the bulbous top portion of the Soyuz spacecraft, which will be depressurized about 10 seconds after the completion of the deorbit burn. The crew is strapped into their seats in the descent module, that center section that you see. The bottom portion, the instrumentation and propulsion module, also will be discarded at the time of the automatic pyrotechnic separation of the modules that is scheduled at 1:51 a.m. Central Time. About 3 minutes after the modules separate, the descent module will reach the upper levels of the Earth's atmosphere called entry interface at an altitude of about 61.8 miles. At that time, the crew members will start to feel the pull of gravity against their bodies. For Loral O'Hara, the first time she will experience gravity in 204 days. Some 90 seconds later, The spacecraft will begin its entry into what is called the plasma regime, where the temperatures around the Soyuz descent module will build to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, the heat shield pointed in the direction of travel to repel or ablate the heat away from the spacecraft. They will exit that plasma regime just after 2 a.m. Central Time, and a minute later, the crew will experience their maximum G loads on their bodies, about 4 to 5 Gs, if everything is going according to plan. The command to open the parachutes at an altitude of 6.7 miles above the Earth is scheduled to be issued at 2:03 a.m. Central Time, 3:03 a.m. Eastern Time, some 14 and a half minutes before touchdown, which is scheduled at 2:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 12:17 p.m. Kazakhstan time at the landing site, some 6 hours and 43 minutes before sunset. The latest coordinates for the landing, as relayed to the crew a few minutes ago by the Russian mission controllers in Korolyov, calls for the landing to occur at a latitude of 47.24 degrees north and a longitude of 69.39 degrees east. One other note that is worth mentioning, shortly before the separation of the modules, that again is scheduled at 1:51 a.m. Central Time, this is the area where the Soyuz will be too far away from the International Space Station to assure guaranteed voice communications. That'll be at a range of about 170 kilometers between the Soyuz and the International Space Station. So at this point, communications could be choppy and they could be lost altogether for a period of time. That is normal until the Soyuz approaches the area of the landing site, at which time communications will be restored through the Antonov flying fixed-wing aircraft, which serves as a flying relay and data command center, if you will, to relay voice and data back to the Russian mission controllers in Korolyov. About 11 minutes away from the start of the deorbit burn. At this point, the landing team members who will be aboard the 6 Russian Mi-8 helicopters departing from Zhezkazgan for the landing site, they're in their respective helicopters, rotors running, ready to take off in sequential fashion for about a 35-minute flight to the landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz MS-24. At the landing site southeast of Zhezkazgan, it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon with just a few clouds at 10,000 feet, winds out of the southwest at about 6 knots, and the temperature expected to be around 60 degrees Fahrenheit for a balmy spring return to Earth for Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya.
Казбек, ТУП Москвы.
Казбек, Moscow. Go ahead at 9:14. I send the EKV inhibit. Waiting for the maneuver. Copy. And then proceed with the timeline for the burn. Copy.
Approaching 8 minutes before the start of the deorbit burn. All the Soyuz systems are in excellent shape. Aboard the International Space Station itself, the Expedition 71 crew, transitioning from 70 to 71 at the time of the undocking a few hours ago, led by Commander Oleg Kononenko. That Expedition 71 crew is wrapping up its workday. They'll be monitoring the next hour or so until the landing of the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft and its 3 occupants, and have an off-duty weekend planned. A lot of activity lies ahead for the space station and its crew on board, with the schedule calling for a Russian spacewalk by Kononenko and Roscosmos cosmonaut Nikolai Chub. On April 25th, the undocking of the SpaceX Dragon cargo craft on April 26th for its return home, filled with science experiments and equipment. That will set the stage for a relocation of the Crew 8 Crew Dragon spacecraft from the forward port of the Harmony module to the Zenith port on Harmony, which is currently occupied by the SpaceX cargo craft. In their Soyuz vehicle, with an undocking schedule 3 hours and 50 minutes from now. The undocking is scheduled at 10:54 p.m. Central Time, 11:54 p.m. Eastern Time. There will be a physical separation of the Soyuz from the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Essentially, hooks will be commanded to be opened. That will take about 90 seconds to complete. Springs on both sides of the docking interface will push off against one another, and the Soyuz will be free from its mooring that it has been attached to since last September, when it brought O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub to the International Space Station. Kononenko and Chub are remaining on board the station in the final segment of their year-long mission into space. They'll return in September on the recently arrived Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft along with Tracy Dyson.
Okay. D1 must be illuminated, but it is not.
The actual transition, the formal transition of Expedition 70 to Expedition 71 on board the International Space Station begins at the time of undocking. Expedition 71 will be led by the current station commander, Oleg Kononenko, who has spent more days in space than any other human. In fact, on June 4th, he will pass a significant milestone of 1,000 days in space on his 5 flights. From left to right, you're looking at the Expedition 71 crew: Alexander Grabenkin, Tracy Dyson, Mike Barrett, Nikolai Chub, Matt Dominic, Oleg Kononenko, and Jeanette Epps. They will continue their mission aboard the station, a mission of research and of a very busy complement of visiting vehicle traffic comings and goings over the next several weeks.
F3, F9, F13 are eliminated. T is T1 and T5.
The destination for O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya tonight is a landing site in the remote south-central portion of Kazakhstan, about 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. That is where the Soyuz descent module will touch down to complete a parachute-assisted landing that will bring the 3 crew members home. A team of Roscosmos and NASA personnel are in the staging city of Karaganda to the northeast of the landing site. They will be deployed to the landing site in helicopters a few hours from now, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz, and then the ultimate extraction of the crew from the descent module, the center section of the 3-section Soyuz vehicle. That is the only section that survives the blast of re-entry and the searing heat that will build up to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit around the spacecraft as it descends through the atmosphere for its parachute-assisted touchdown.
Confirmed.
Once the crew is extracted, they'll be placed in chairs right next to the capsule to have a few moments to be able to regain their Earth legs, if you will, as they readjust their bodies to the force of gravity, particularly O'Hara, coming home from 204 days in space. She and Kononenko and Chub were launched back on September 15th of last year. The 3 crew members will be loaded into 3 separate helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, where they will split up. O'Hara will board a NASA plane heading back to Houston, while Novitsky and Vasilevskaya will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft bound for their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow.
And speakers?
24-2, 345, 6, and -11. All steps prescribed have been completed. Copy. We are an autonomous. Reminder.
Once the Soyuz undocks from the Rosviet module, there'll be a series of separation burns to begin an opening rate that will take the Soyuz to about 39 kilometers or so away from the International Space Station, a very safe distance away from the complex, for the deorbit burn that will be a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz braking rockets, if you will, to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. The deorbit burn is scheduled early tomorrow morning at 1:23 and 53 seconds a.m. Central Time, 2:23 and 53 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. Once the deorbit burn is complete, about 23 minutes later, there will be a computer command to pyrotechnically separate the 3 sections of the Soyuz, the orbital module, which is the bulbous top section of the Soyuz vehicle, and the instrumentation and propulsion module, which is the lower section of the Soyuz. Strapped into their respective seats in the center section, or the descent module, Novitsky, as the Soyuz commander, will be in the center seat, flanked to his right by Loral O'Hara and to his left by Marina Vasilevskaya. The module separation is scheduled at 1:51 a.m. Central Time, 2:51 a.m. Eastern Time. About 3 minutes later, the Soyuz and its 3 occupants will hit the top of the Earth's atmosphere, what is called entry interface, at an altitude of about 62 miles, at which point the 3 crew members will begin to feel the tug of Earth's gravity against their bodies. They will then, about a minute and a half later, enter into the plasma regime, where the temperatures around the Soyuz will begin to build up. The heat shield will be pointed in the direction of travel to ablate that heat and keep the crew members on board the descent module nice and safe as they enter the atmosphere. That's about a 4-minute time frame from entry to exit from that plasma regime. Maximum G loads will build up on the crew to about 4 to 5 Gs at that point. And then, just about 15 minutes before touchdown, the command will be issued to open the parachutes. First, an extraction chute, followed by a drogue chute, and then the main parachute at an altitude of about 6.5 miles off the ground. Landing is scheduled at 2:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, again, about 91 miles to the southeast of Zhezkazgan, landing occurring in the early afternoon on Saturday in the Kazakh steppe, about 6 hours and 43 minutes before sunset. About 20 minutes or so from now, we'll be seeing the crew members in the passageway, if you will, between the Rassvet module and the hatchway to the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft. They will have an opportunity to say goodbye to their crewmates on board the station, who will remain as the Expedition 71 crew. Again, Expedition 71 formally beginning at the time of undocking. Once the three crew members float aboard the Soyuz, they will close the hatch. And on both sides of the docking interface between Soyuz and Rassvet, there will be a series of leak checks conducted to make sure that we have an airtight seal between the two vehicles, if you will, before the small vestibule or passageway between Soyuz and Rassvet is depressurized down to vacuum to set the stage for undocking. Once again, O'Hara is wrapping up 204 days in space and aboard the International Space Station, a mission that has spanned 3,264 orbits of the Earth, 86.5 million statute miles. For Novitsky and Vasilevskaya, they will have completed 14 days in space, 12 days aboard the station. If you recall, their initial launch attempt, along with Tracy Dyson back on March 21st, ran into a last-second abort, and the launch was rescheduled down in BAIKONUR at the Cosmodrome 2 days later on March 23rd. At that time, the launch was perfectly nominal, and their climb to orbit and their docking to the space station back on March 25th. Novitsky and Vasilevskaya will have completed 224 orbits of the Earth, their own mission spanning 5.9 million statute miles. Loral O'Hara saw the arrival of 8 visiting vehicles during her time aboard the station: 2 SpaceX Cargo Dragon spacecraft, 2 Russian Progress resupply ships, 2 Crew Dragon spacecraft, 1 Northrop Grumman Cygnus vehicle, and 1 Russian Soyuz vehicle. That was the one that carried Novitsky, Dyson, and Vasilevskaya to the station just 2 weeks ago. She also saw the departure of 7 visiting vehicles: 1 SpaceX Cargo Dragon, 2 SpaceX Crew Dragon vehicles, 2 Russian Progress resupply ships, 1 Northrop Grumman Cygnus vehicle, and 1 Russian Soyuz vehicle that brought Frank Rubio home in September of last year to complete a U.S. record-setting mission for Rubio. As you look at a view here in Mission Control in Houston, we're about to have a 4-minute loss of signal through our tracking and data relay satellite system. We'll pick up communications with the station as well as downlink video as the station moves into a daylight pass. The station is currently flying 260 miles above the Earth. traveling from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator over the southern Indian Ocean. Once again, we will be reacquiring our downlink signal from the station just a few minutes from now, at which point, shortly thereafter, we should be seeing the crew members gathering in the passageway in the Rosviet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station for an opportunity to say farewell. O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya preparing to enter the Soyuz MS-24 and close the hatch to begin deorbit and landing preparations. With the return to Earth of the Soyuz MS-24 in the wee hours of Saturday, the stage will be set for the next series of major operational activities for the International Space Station crew. On April 25th, Kononenko and Chub will be conducting a 7-hour spacewalk outside of the Poisk module of the International Space Station to deploy and retrieve experiment packages. The next day, on April 26th, the SpaceX Cargo Dragon spacecraft that is docked to the Zenith or space-facing port of the Harmony module of the International Space Station is scheduled to undock. That, in turn, sets the stage for the undocking, fly-around, and relocation of the Crew 8 Dragon spacecraft with Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Alexander Grebenkin on board, about a short 40-minute operation that will relocate parking places for that SpaceX Dragon crew craft, opening up the forward port of the Harmony module for the expected arrival in early May of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft that was fueled for launch down at the Kennedy Space Center earlier today. Preparations on track for the launch of Starliner on the crew flight test mission that is scheduled for launch on the evening of May 6th. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams in the home stretch of their training regime as they board Starliner for a 24-hour trip to the International Space Station, and again, a docking to the forward port of the Harmony module, and a stay of around 8 days or so as they conduct a test flight of the Boeing Starliner vehicle.
Moscow station on SG-1.
Отвечаем в SG-1.
Go ahead on SG-1.
Сергей, а как вы сейчас представляете, вот у нас делается вот это вот, что мы будем делать?
So, what are we going to do during the PO? Will it be recorded or live streamed?
Секунду, мы как раз вот насчет этого.
Stand by one. We are discussing this. Give us a minute, please.
Группа Москвы в канале SG-1 для Олега.
Station Moscow on SG-1 for Oleg and TV coverage. We were discussing this with management, and we decided that we will not do the coverage from the SM, not to distract you. So we'll just gather in MRM-1 as usual for the farewell ceremony.
Посещение сами, то есть, ну, чтобы мы видели.
So that we could see everything on the camera, the farewell ceremony and closing hatches. So we will not activate the camera in SM, and at the appointed time, we'll just go towards the hatch. That's correct. And 240, 250 is the hatch closure, is that right?
Да, верно, 040.
That is correct. 040.
Мимо 1СУ это 040, да.
040 is MRM-1SU. So do we close our hatch first?
As you hear the interpretation of the discussion between the Russian controllers in Korolyov and the crew aboard the International Space Station about camera configuration for the farewells between the departing crew and the rest of the expedition crew on the station. There's our first excellent look at the Soyuz MS-24 docked to the Rosviet module for the next 3.5 hours before it will undock. Again, the undocking is scheduled at 10:54 p.m. Central Time, 11:54 p.m. Eastern Time. You can see the three sections of the Soyuz. At the bottom of your screen attached to Rosviet is the orbital module with the docking mechanism. In the center is the descent module, again, the only section of the Soyuz that returns to Earth with the crew members on board. And at the very top of your screen with the solar arrays clearly in view is the instrumentation and propulsion module. The three sections will be pyrotechnically separated from one another. About 23 minutes after the deorbit burn, with the descent module facing the direction of travel, its heat shield ready to repel the heat of reentry and bring the crew members home to a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan, about 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. Once again, in the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, which is about 400 kilometers to the northeast of the landing site, the NASA and Roscosmos and Search and Recovery Force teams are preparing to leave their hotels to gather at the Karaganda airport to begin boarding helicopters that will make a 2-hour trek to the landing site. Other crew members will be boarding an Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft to fly to Zhezkazgan. The helicopters will be refueled in Zhezkazgan before they make it on the final leg of their journey to the landing site to conserve fuel for the return trip post-landing, with O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya each in their own helicopter to head back to Karaganda, where the crew will split up, as we mentioned earlier. O'Hara boarding a NASA plane in Karaganda, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft that will be bound back to the training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. The International Space Station, traveling at a speed of 5 miles per second, is flying over the Indian Ocean, about to cross Jakarta in this current swing from southwest to northeast. There is a good view of the three vehicles on the Earth-facing side of the station. On the far left is the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft that is docked to the Prishal node module. In the center is the object of attention tonight. That is the Soyuz MS-24 docked to Rosviet, and which will depart less than 3.5 hours from now with O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya on board. On the far right, with the ultraflex solar arrays clearly prominent, is the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft.
Well, there's nothing to show here. There's no more space. We can try that, but I will need to reposition it. Okay, let's leave it as is.
And a view in the Rosviet module of the hatchway to the Soyuz spacecraft as the crew members prepare to gather to bid farewell to O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya. That is Oleg Novitsky, who is wrapping up his 4th flight into space and a total of 545 days.
That he gave the.
He is the Soyuz commander for this evening. He'll be occupying the center seat of the Soyuz, again flanked on his right by Loral O'Hara of NASA, and on his left by Marina Vasilevskaya, the Belarus spaceflight participant who flew to the station under an intergovernmental agreement between Roscosmos and Belarus.
And this is the maximum I can offer considering cable length. We would need to use the extender to.
Novitsky, O'Hara, and Vasilevskaya have conducted some onboard training of their entry and descent activities over the course of the last 10 days or so in preparation for their return to Earth. And there's the station commander, Oleg Kononenko. And a good view on the right side of your screen of Marina Vasilevskaya, the spaceflight participant. She and Novitsky will be coming home in the wee hours Saturday, U.S. time, after 14 days in space, 12 days aboard the International Space Station. The Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center, who are in charge of tonight's operation to bring the crew home, report that all of the Soyuz systems are in excellent shape, ready to support undocking that is scheduled just about 3 hours and 20 minutes from now. Once Novitsky, O'Hara, and Vasilevskaya move inside the Soyuz and close the hatch, they'll conduct a series of leak checks to make sure that we have a tight seal at the docking interface before they depressurize the vestibule or small passageway between the two vehicles to vacuum, setting the stage for the command to open up the hooks holding the Soyuz in place. Of course, prior to undocking, the three crew members will suit up in their Sokol launch and entry suits and conduct other systems and communications checks before undocking. Again, the undocking is scheduled at 10:54 p.m. Central Time, 11:54 p.m. Eastern Time. Crew members will be gathering right there at the hatchway of Soyuz just a few minutes from now to say goodbye to each other.
How do you copy
I'll
me?
copy from
MRM1, we
MRM1.
copy you
We
loud and
copy you
clear.
loud and clear.
How do you copy us?
Do you copy us? So it's
So we started with the
difficult to position
there are
ourselves here.
pressurized adapter module. Oleg, whatever is convenient for you. Just for your information, can you copy me? Yes, of course. Go ahead, Oleg. So on panel 206, so there is emergency equipment also on the floor. There is the BMP filter, and panel 109 has the X on it. Then we remove the air ducts So everything for MRM1 here, all the air ducts and hardware. Yeah, copy all, Oleg. Thank you so much. Okay, so the units and also the unit number 2, the assembly and unit number 2. Yes, that's correct. Excellent. Thank you.
This is Mission Control Houston. If you've just joined us, you're looking at International Space Station Commander Oleg Kononenko of Roscosmos at the hatchway between the Rosviet module and the Soyuz MS-24. We should see other crew members gathering momentarily to say goodbye to one another as Oleg Novitsky, the Soyuz commander, NASA's Loral O'Hara, and Belarus spaceflight participant Marina Vasilevskaya board the Soyuz to begin preparations for undocking 3 hours and 15 minutes from now, the first leg of the journey home that will result in a landing, parachute assisted, on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 2:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time Saturday morning, 3:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 12:17 p.m. in Kazakhstan. And Loral O'Hara, the returning NASA crew member, about to say goodbye to the rest of her crewmates. And there's the Soyuz MS-24. A brief glimpse as the crew members continue to gather in the passageway. There's Marina Vasilevskaya. And Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky. As we prepare to see the 3 returning crew members enter the Soyuz, the report back from the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov is that Soyuz has been transitioned to autonomous power. And there's Loral O'Hara.
Expedition 21, and also, of course, expedition of ISS. Also, our greetings to you as well, and congratulations.
And with that, a final wave from Vasilevskaya and O'Hara, and now Novitsky on board the Soyuz, having bid farewell to their expedition colleagues. Novitsky and Vasilevskaya returning to Earth after 2 weeks on the station, O'Hara wrapping up 204 days aboard the orbital outpost. As Kononenko wipes down the hatchway interface before the hatches will swing closed. The International Space Station currently flying 260 miles over Osaka, Japan. The hatch closed on the Rosviet module side. It will be standing by for confirmation of the Soyuz hatch closure.
Moscow station on space to ground 1. Go ahead on space to ground 1. The station hatch is closed. Oleg, copy all. We saw it all. Thank you. Everything is great.
This is Mission Control Houston. The hatch on the Rosviet and we now have confirmation that the Soyuz hatch has been closed at 7:45 p.m. Central Time, 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So hatches on both sides of the docking interface between Rosviet and the Soyuz MS-24 that you see in your view. Both of those hatches are closed right on time, as the crew now on the Soyuz side, as well as the station crew, will begin a series of leak checks at the docking interface to make sure we have a tight seal before the passageway or small vestibule between the two spacecraft is depressurized in preparation for undocking.
Copy.
Ну, перед закрытием ты подготовку выполнил, да?
Prior to closure, you performed the preparation steps. Well, remove the cap, for example. Yes, it's removed and stowed. I wiped down the surface.
Ну, КВД закрыт, да?
And the KVD pressure equalization valve is closed, yes? Yes, KVD is closed.
Тогда, Олег,
Copy.
работаем по книге «Спуск», 33-я страница.
Let's continue per the descent book, page 33.
Команды.
Okay, the commands I will put in work right now.
Веди репортаж, как будешь выдавать команды.
Please report down as you are putting in the command. 337, command is in.
With the hatches closed between Soyuz and the station, the next step on the road home will occur about 3 hours and 5 minutes from now with the undocking of the Soyuz from the Rosviet module of the International Space Station. The Soyuz will move to a safe distance away from the station for the 4-minute, 41-second engine firing, a braking maneuver to enable the Soyuz to drop out of orbit for its high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. 23 minutes after the deorbit burn, the pyrotechnic command will be issued to separate the 3 sections of the Soyuz, leaving the descent module with the crew members strapped in their seats, heading towards the entry into the Earth's atmosphere, where temperatures will build to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Command is in.
The next step will be the command to open the parachutes at an altitude of about 6.5 miles above the Earth's surface. It will be about 15 minutes between the shoot deploy and touchdown, with the soft landing engines at the base of the Soyuz firing about 1 to 2 seconds before impact on the steppe of Kazakhstan. The crew will be home. Landing is scheduled at 2:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 12:17 p.m. on Saturday afternoon at the landing site in Kazakhstan.
7 command. Make sure that S11 is illuminated. S11 is illuminated. How copy? Copy.
With NASA's Loral O'Hara, Roscosmos Soyuz commander Oleg Novitsky, and Belarus spaceflight participant Marina Vasilevskaya on board the Soyuz with the hatches closed, preparations will be continuing now for the undocking of the Soyuz from the International Space Station about 3 hours and 3 minutes from now at 10:54 p.m. Central Time.
Has grown in terms of its scientific experiments and the principal investigations that are ongoing.
Great. And Jeanette, this as a first time on station, how has your experience been so far?
Well, it's been about 26 days that I've been here or so, and it has been just amazing to see the Earth from this perspective and some of the things that we get to participate in. And in particular, you know, the science that we're doing and trying to figure out how to get the human body to live longer in space, materials, all kinds of things that I've been interested in my entire career. And so we actually get to be the hands and the eyes for the investigators on Earth and be a big part of what's going on to get us further and further into space soon.
So how would you explain the feeling of spaceflight to these students? How was the trip? How is microgravity? And especially the students wanted to know, how is the food?
Well, starting with being on the launch pad and the anticipation of taking off, it was far better than I ever dreamed of. I always tell people, I've been telling people that if you had heard the screams from the capsule when we took off, it was like a bunch of people on an amusement park ride and full enjoyment of everything that was happening in that moment. And then once we could get out of our seats and look out the window, and we could see our booster heading back to Earth as we were going the other direction. Absolutely amazing. And then being weightless is a whole other phenomena. I mean, it feels like swimming. It feels like a couple of different things, but there's nothing like it really. And it does eventually become your friend, and you learn how to manage everything that's going to just float off if you don't tether it down or Velcro it down. So life up here is very unique, and it does take time to adapt. I mean, your body's changing. Everything about you is changing. Your perspective on Earth, your cellular structure, your bones, your muscles, and learning to live in spaces. That's everything that has to adapt. And then the food. The food is interesting, and it's actually pretty good. It's very good. You know, I was saying that curry vegetables was one of my favorite things, and other people are like, "Ooh, that doesn't sound good." But up here, for some reason, it's one of my favorite dishes. Also, you know, there's all kind of different things that we have. For example, we have food from Isa where we have duck with capers, or from Russia, we'll have their pureed soups with meat, which are very good as well. So the food is not bad. It's actually better than you think. So I can sum up my experience and the time that I've been up here is that it's been mind blowing. It's just amazing and mind blowing all together. And you know, we're very fortunate that we get to be the ones to be your hands and eyes back on Earth. So you know, it's been a great.
Wanted to get a photo in front of the screen with you guys in the background.
Okay, astronaut says come to the screen. Come to the stage. Come to the stage
So
now. We have 2 minutes and we want to
while
take a
they're
photo
doing
with
that,
you, lovely ladies. Just smile. Come to the stage now. Just don't cover the astronauts. Step up on both sides. Step up. Come on.
I know they were also
Let's see how
interested in seeing
quickly
you
elementary
float.
school students can come to a stage. They're waving at you. Oh, don't float away. All right.
They wanted to see him float.
We have 1 minute. All right. The students turn around and face the camera. Look at your teachers.
All right, did you get it?
Yes. All right, we got it. Thank you all. Thank you
Okay.
all so much.
Thank you,
Behind the
Tracy and
curtain.
Jeanette, for all your time today and all the work that you're doing. Have a great expedition on station. We can't wait to see all the incredible results. Thanks again.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
Copy. Join the GSO, confirmed. Copy, stand by for the second burn. Copy.
That second separation burn referred to there by the Russian flight controllers through an interpreter is a 15-second burn coming up in about 20 seconds from now.
Thruster ignition.
Separation burn number 2 underway.
Thrusters are off. Copy. Let's put in the V-18 command and turn off Vizir Prichal.
And a good pair of separation burns for the Soyuz, now well underway, backing away in increasing velocity from the International Space Station.
The command has been sent. Copy, let's go to page 50. Working for page 50.
Station Moscow on SG1 regarding KVD MM1.
The International Space Station, meanwhile, will soon maneuver back into its post-undocking orientation.
Okay, do I need to close KVD?
The trio on board the Soyuz MS-24 will have a bit of free time before they review descent procedures well in advance of the deorbit burn that is scheduled 2 hours and 24 minutes from now.
Let the recording continue.
Again, you're looking at the 3 crew members who have just departed the International Space Station. Loral O'Hara, the NASA flight engineer, wrapping up 204 days in space and a mission of 86.5 million statute miles. Oleg Novitsky and Marina Vasilevskaya wrapping up 14 days in space, 12 days aboard the station, having brought a fresh Soyuz, the MS-25 spacecraft, to the station. And this engineering view from the perspective of the Soyuz crew, that cross-haired data camera that you are familiar with from previous Russian operations with Soyuz and Progress vehicles.
To the transport position.
And a good view as the Soyuz crosses just past the limb of the Earth.
Go ahead.
Schedule parameters. Bottle 1, 171, and bottle 2, 172.
Soyuz is in closed position. Okay, Oleg, and you can deactivate the recording and the video cameras for MBAC2 and the application.
Copy.
Unintelligible.
TV off, OFF.
Хорошо, принял.
Okay, copy. Oleg?
Принял.
Copy.
Выдал команду.
Send command. CV отку.
Принял. Переходим на страницу 50.
Copy. Moving to page 54.
Another view of the Soyuz MS-24, which departed the International Space Station just about 8.5 minutes ago.
Принял.
Copy.
Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky in the center seat of the descent module, the center section of the three-section Soyuz spacecraft, is calling out data to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov outside of Moscow. At the very top, you see the bulbous-shaped orbital module, and at the bottom with the solar arrays, that is the instrumentation and propulsion module. Some 23 minutes after the deorbit burn,
With the timing.
those three sections will pyrotechnically separate. The only section left will be the descent module, pointed in the direction of travel of the descent of the Soyuz through the Earth's atmosphere.
For work by that
for
time.
step
Copy all.
12.4,
We'll be ready.
downlink the recorded information. Do I need to downlink the video? Yes, we'll need to downlink that. Okay, downlink files. That is correct. Moscow Station on SG-1.
Отвечаем, СГ-1.
Go ahead on SG-1. Unintelligible.
Да, можно.
Можно по времени переводить. Yes, you can switch that according to the timeline activity. Okay, we'll do.
The Soyuz MS-24 continues its opening rate away from the International Space Station. The deorbit burn to begin the trip out of low Earth orbit for this trio of crew members is scheduled 2 hours and 18 minutes and 54 seconds from now. That deorbit burn scheduled at 1:23 and 53 seconds a.m. Central Time Saturday morning, 2:23 and 53 seconds a.m. Eastern Time. That will be a long 4-minute, 41-second burn, a braking maneuver, if you will, to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, while the Soyuz is at a distance of about 39 kilometers away from the International Space Station. Right after the deorbit burn, that top portion of the Soyuz that you're looking at, called the orbital module, will be depressurized per the plan to set the stage for the pyrotechnic separation of the three components of the Soyuz: the orbital module at the top, the descent module that the crew is strapped into in the center section, and the lower section, which is the instrumentation and propulsion module. That separation is commanded automatically, pyrotechnically, to enable the descent module to begin its journey into the Earth's atmosphere with the heat shield pointed in the direction of travel to repel temperatures that will build up to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, you're looking at the Soyuz MS-24, good views continuing to be captured by external cameras on the International Space Station as it moves methodically away from the complex, ultimately to a distance of about 39 kilometers from the station for its deorbit burn, a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde firing of the Soyuz engines, scheduled 2 hours and 15 minutes from now. The station and the Soyuz are flying 260 statute miles over the North Pacific, moving from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to get excellent views of the Soyuz MS-24 as it moves away from the International Space Station. About 18 minutes after its undocking from the Rosviet module, aboard the Soyuz, NASA's Loral O'Hara, Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky of Roscosmos, and Belarus spaceflight participant Marina Vasilevskaya. We're just about 2 hours and 11 minutes away from the deorbit burn that will set the stage for the Soyuz descent module's entry back into the Earth's atmosphere and a landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan at 2:17 a.m. Central Time, 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 12:17 p.m. at the landing site in Kazakhstan on what will be a balmy Saturday afternoon with temperatures around 60 degrees Fahrenheit forecast. Just a few clouds at 10,000 feet, winds out of the southwest at about 6 knots. It doesn't get much better than that for an early April homecoming for a Soyuz crew. The NASA, Roscosmos, and Rosaviatsa search and recovery team aboard an Antonov 26 aircraft. They're airborne, flying from Karaganda, the staging city, to an interim staging point in Zhezkazgan where helicopters, Russian Mi-8 helicopters, are waiting to begin about a 30 to 35-minute flight to the landing zone. Those helicopters will arrive in a circular pattern, essentially like a racetrack, as they await the arrival of the Soyuz under its parachute. Once the Soyuz touches down, the recovery teams will make their way to the capsule, ensure that there are no toxic gases emanating from the descent module before they begin the extraction of the crew members, placing them in chairs alongside the capsule so that they can have a few minutes to regain their land legs. Loral O'Hara coming home after 204 days in space, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya after 2 weeks in space. After that, the crew members will be carried in those chairs to a nearby inflatable medical tent where they will doff their Sokol launch and entry suits, receive preliminary medical exams, and then be taken to 3 separate helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to Karaganda, where they will split up, O'Hara boarding a NASA jet to fly back to Houston, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft to fly back to their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. This is Mission Control Houston, with everything going very smoothly on board the Soyuz MS-24. We will wrap up this portion of our continuous coverage of the return to Earth of Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya. The deorbit burn is scheduled 2 hours and 7 minutes from now. We will be back on the air at 1 a.m. Central Time, 2 a.m. Eastern Time, with our deorbit burn and landing coverage and a lot more detail about the timeline that will bring those 3 crew members home to wrap up this mission of the Soyuz MS-24. So don't wander very far. Come back and rejoin us here at 1 a.m. Central, 2 a.m. Eastern for deorbit and landing coverage for O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya. For now, we'll sign off. This is Mission Control Houston. A half a dozen Russian Mi-8 helicopters for the 30 to 35-minute flight to the landing zone, where they will begin a circular pattern around the landing zone itself, waiting for the arrival of the Soyuz under its parachute. Once the Soyuz touches down, those recovery forces will begin to make their way toward the spacecraft, and the process of extracting the crew one by one, placing them in medical chairs and comfortable chairs outside of the capsule so that they can have a few minutes to regain their land legs and their equilibrium before they're carried into a nearby inflatable medical tent for preliminary medical exams and to get out of those SOCO launch and entry suits into more comfortable clothing. The three crew members will then board three individual helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, where they will split up, O'Hara boarding a NASA jet for the return flight to Houston, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya boarding a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft for their flight back to their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. As we approach the 15-minute mark before the start of the deorbit burn, again, Novitsky is the Soyuz commander under the call sign of Kazbeki that he has called his spacecraft. He will be told by the Russian flight control team in Korolyov to transmit the pressure readings and the duration of the burn and the progress of the burn as it is executed, again, a 4-minute, 41-second deorbit burn to slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second. 28 minutes after the deorbit burn will be the pyrotechnic separation of the three sections of the Soyuz, the orbital module, the bulbous top portion of the Soyuz spacecraft, which will be depressurized about 10 seconds after the completion of the deorbit burn. The crew is strapped into their seats in the descent module, that center section that you see. The bottom portion, the instrumentation and propulsion module, also will be discarded at the time of the automatic pyrotechnic separation of the modules that is scheduled at 1:51 a.m. Central Time. About 3 minutes after the modules separate, the descent module will reach the upper levels of the Earth's atmosphere called entry interface at an altitude of about 61.8 miles. At that time, the crew members will start to feel the pull of gravity against their bodies. For Loral O'Hara, the first time she will experience gravity in 204 days. Some 90 seconds later, the spacecraft will begin its entry into what is called the plasma regime, where the temperatures around the Soyuz descent module will build to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, the heat shield pointed in the direction of travel to repel or ablate the heat away from the spacecraft. They will exit that plasma regime just after 2 a.m. Central Time, and a minute later, the crew will experience their maximum G loads on their bodies, about 4 to 5 Gs, if everything is going according to plan. The command to open the parachutes at an altitude of 6.7 miles above the Earth is scheduled to be issued at 2:03 a.m. Central Time, 3:03 a.m. Eastern Time, some 14 and a half minutes before touchdown, which is scheduled at 2:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 12:17 p.m. Kazakhstan time at the landing site, some 6 hours and 43 minutes before sunset. The latest coordinates for the landing, as relayed to the crew a few minutes ago by the Russian mission controllers in Korolyov, calls for the landing to occur at a latitude of 47.24 degrees north and a longitude of 69.39 degrees east. One other note that is worth mentioning, shortly before the separation of the modules, that again is scheduled at 1:51 a.m. Central Time, this is the area where the Soyuz will be too far away from the International Space Station to assure guaranteed voice communications. That'll be at a range of about 170 kilometers between the Soyuz and the International Space Station. So at this point, communications could be choppy and they could be lost altogether for a period of time. That is normal until the Soyuz approaches the area of the landing site, at which time communications will be restored through the Antonov flying fixed wing aircraft, which serves as a flying relay and data command center, if you will, to relay voice and data back to the Russian mission controllers in Korolyov. About 11 minutes away from the start of the deorbit burn. At this point, the landing team members who will be aboard the 6 Russian Mi-8 helicopters departing from Zhezkazgan for the landing site, they're in their respective helicopters, rotors running, ready to take off in sequential fashion for about a 35-minute flight to the landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz MS-24. At the landing site southeast of Zhezkazgan, it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon with just a few clouds at 10,000 feet, winds out of the southwest at about 6 knots, and the temperature expected to be around 60 degrees Fahrenheit for a balmy spring return to Earth for Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya.
Казбек, ЦУП Москвы.
Казбек, Moscow.
На связи в 9:14.
Go ahead at 9:14. I send the EKV inhibit.
Ожидаем разворот.
Waiting for the maneuver. Copy.
Далее по циклограмме отработки импульса.
And then proceed with the timeline for the burn. Copy.
Approaching 8 minutes before the start of the deorbit burn, all the Soyuz systems are in excellent shape. Aboard the International Space Station itself, the Expedition 71 crew transitioning from 70 to 71 at the time of the undocking a few hours ago, led by Commander Oleg Kononenko. That Expedition 71 crew is wrapping up its workday. They'll be monitoring the next hour or so until the landing of the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft and its 3 occupants, and have an off-duty weekend planned. A lot of activity lies ahead for the space station and its crew on board, with the schedule calling for a Russian spacewalk by Kononenko and Roscosmos cosmonaut Nikolai Chub. On April 25th, the undocking of the SpaceX Dragon cargo craft on April 26th for its return home, filled with science experiments and equipment. That will set the stage for a relocation of the Crew 8 Crew Dragon spacecraft from the forward port of the Harmony module to the zenith port on Harmony, which is currently occupied by the SpaceX cargo craft. The opening up of the forward port of Harmony through that relocation, which is scheduled for no earlier than April 30th, will then be the precursor to the launch and docking of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft on the crew flight test that is scheduled for launch with Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams aboard on the evening of May 6th from Launch Pad 41 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Just under 6 minutes now until the start of the deorbit burn. Once again, this will be a 4-minute, 41-second retrograde firing, slowing the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to begin its slow descent towards the Earth's atmosphere. The beginning of the deorbit burn will occur at an altitude of 440.3 kilometers above the Earth for the Soyuz. When the burn is complete, 4 minutes and 41 seconds later, the Soyuz will begin its descent from an altitude of 430 kilometers. And again, the upper section of the Soyuz, called the orbital module, will be depressurized 10 seconds after the completion of the burn as planned, setting the stage for the module separation that occurs automatically through pyrotechnic devices. That will occur at 1:51 a.m. Central Time, 2:51 a.m. Eastern Time. Coming up on 4 minutes until the deorbit burn. 2 minutes 45 seconds till the deorbit burn. The International Space Station and Soyuz flying 260 miles above the southwestern Atlantic Ocean, having just crossed the southern tip of South America, now beginning a southwest to northeasterly trek in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. Once again, you'll be hearing Oleg Novitsky calling out parameters of the burn for the duration of its 4 minute, 41 second duration. He'll be communicating frequently with the flight controllers that you see there at the Russian Mission Control Center and the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Korolyov. 90 seconds away from the start of the deorbit burn.
BIOS power is on. Compass. SKD cover is open. Copy.
The Soyuz engine cover is open. 30 seconds till the start of the burn.
Select line E. Selected line E. Copy.
Ten seconds till the start of the burn. Standing by for ignition.
Firing confirmed. Firing confirmed.
The deorbit burn underway as planned. This will be 4 minutes and 41 seconds in duration.
.30 seconds. Burn is 13.2.
Novitsky, as the Soyuz commander, reading off parameters of the burn, 45 seconds into the burn.
Minuta 1 minute 26 and 2. 45. Duration. 1 minute 15 seconds 33.3.
Minuta
1 minute 30 seconds 39.7.
1 minute 40 seconds into the burn. About 3 minutes to go.
Minuta 45.
1 minute and 45. 46.5.
Minuta.
2 minutes.
Just over 2 minutes into the burn, everything proceeding normally.
Copy. 2:15, 60.5.
The Soyuz continues to decelerate. 2 minutes to go in the burn.
Two 2:45, 74.1.
3 minutes into the burn, everything proceeding on track. The first of the search and recovery helicopters for NASA, Roscosmos personnel, and Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces should be taking off right now from the Zhezkazgan airport for the landing site.
3:15, 87.
Принято.
Copy.
3.5 minutes into the burn, about 1 minute, 10 seconds left.
3 minutes, 30 seconds, 95.2. Nozzles nominal. 3:45, 102.8.
4 minutes, 5 seconds into the burn,
109.1.
about 31 seconds left. Four and a half minutes into the burn, standing by for engine cutoff.
4 minutes, 30 seconds, 123.6.
And the deorbit burn is complete and reported to be nominal by the flight controllers in Korolyov. Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya heading back to Earth.
127.9. Copy. Barrel pressure is declining. Copy.
Так, ну, дальше контролируйте падение давления.
Continue monitoring pressure decay and barrel.
Времени по 62-й странице.
And work for page 62.
The orbital module, the uppermost section of the 3-section Soyuz vehicle, currently being depressurized as planned in advance of the separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz that is coming up at 1:51 a.m. Central Time, 2:51 a.m. Eastern.
И позднее 9:45 КСС в режим готовности.
Oleg, no later than 9:45, Share says in ready mode.
So with the deorbit burn having been completed as planned, next up in about 21 minutes will be the separation of the 3 modules comprising the Soyuz spacecraft. Pyrotechnic devices will trigger the automatic separation of those three modules, the upper module being the orbital module, and the lower section being the instrumentation and propulsion module, leaving just the descent module, the center section, with the crew strapped in their seats, heading in the direction of travel toward the landing site.
Composite mittens. I did not understand anything you said.
At the intermediary staging site at Zhezkazgan, which is 91 miles to the northeast, or the northwest, I should say, of the landing site, the Russian Mi-8 helicopters, 6 of them, are en route now to the landing zone, where they will form a circular flying pattern around the landing site, along with an Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft that will serve as a flying relay station for data and voice communication from the Soyuz crew as they approach the area of touchdown.
Kazbeki, this is Moscow. How do you copy?
Kazbeki is the call sign Novitsky chose for his Soyuz spacecraft for both launch to docking as well as undocking through landing. He knows and has trained to maintain as constant communication as possible with the flight controllers in Koryov during the Soyuz descent back into the Earth's atmosphere. We're about 43 minutes away from touchdown, which, if it occurs on time, will be at 2:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, 3:17 and 36 seconds a.m. Eastern Time, 12:17 p.m. on Saturday at the landing site in Kazakhstan, 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan.
Yes, the sensor.
The weather at the landing site is very good. Just a few clouds reported at 10,000 feet. Winds very light out of the southwest at about 6 knots. Temperatures around 60 degrees Fahrenheit to greet O'Hara, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya.
Okay.
Что говорит? Спасибо. Получилось, Лорел?
Нет. Were you able to do it? No.
The Russian ballistics experts have forecast the touchdown to occur at a latitude of 47.24 degrees north with a longitude of 69.39 degrees east for the Soyuz spacecraft and its 3 occupants. Everything quiet on board the Soyuz as it is at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov. All the Soyuz systems in good shape. The undocking earlier was perfectly normal. The separation burns to begin the departure opening rate for the Soyuz away from the International Space Station were executed on time, as was the deorbit burn just a few minutes ago to decelerate the Soyuz, enabling it to begin its descent out of low Earth orbit back toward the Earth's atmosphere. Aside from the Rosaviatsa helicopter support teams, the 6 Mi-8 helicopters, which are airborne en route to the landing site, the Russian flight controllers report that all the ground support teams already in place in all-terrain vehicles are poised for the return of the Soyuz. With the weather expected to be good for landing with good visibility, our hope is that we begin to pick up video of the Soyuz descending under its large orange and white parachute. Those chutes will be deployed about 15 minutes before touchdown. We're about 12 minutes away from the module separation, the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz. That will occur at an altitude of 87 miles above the Earth. The module separation will occur about 3 minutes before the Soyuz begins to enter the Earth's atmosphere. This is Mission Control Houston. Just to recap, everything proceeding on schedule as planned with the return of the Soyuz MS-24 back to Earth. Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky, NASA astronaut Loral O'Hara, and Belarus spaceflight participant Marina Vasilevskaya, soon to feel the tug of Earth's gravity against their bodies. For O'Hara, this will be the first sensation of gravity in 204 days. Novitsky and Vasilevskaya comprising basically a taxi crew to ferry a new Soyuz vehicle up to the station, the Soyuz MS-25, which remains at the station and is the ticket home for NASA's Tracy Dyson, along with Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chub, come September. The Russian ballistics officers have refined the landing coordinates post-deorbit burn, a very slight tweak. The expected landing target for the Soyuz MS-24 is at a latitude of 47.21 degrees north and a longitude of 69.38 degrees east. The Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Forces en route to the landing zone. The Russian Mi-8 helicopters are airborne. They'll arrive in the vicinity of the landing site a short time from now and will maintain a circular flying pattern around that landing zone, awaiting the arrival of the Soyuz under its chute. Those helicopters are accompanied by an Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft that serves as a flying relay center for communications and data from the Soyuz to the Russian flight control team in Korolyov outside of Moscow. Eight minutes away from the scheduled module separation for the Soyuz vehicle, in the descent module in the center seat is the Soyuz commander Oleg Novitsky of Roscosmos. NASA's Loral O'Hara strapped into her seat. To the right of Novitsky, Marina Vasilevskaya, the Belarus spaceflight participant, is seated to Novitsky's left. As a reminder, following the deorbit burn, as is commonplace, the Soyuz is too far away from the International Space Station for reliable VHF communications. And so those communications either are lost or are choppy at best until the Soyuz approaches the vicinity of the landing site, when those communications are restored solidly with the Antonov 26 relay plane. Again, this is normal and is to be expected, as we are now about 6 minutes away from the planned separation of the three sections of the Soyuz. Here in Mission Control in Houston, countdown clocks ticking backward toward the expected touchdown time for the Soyuz, just about 31 minutes from now. Loral O'Hara is wrapping up 204 days in space, in which she accrued 3,264 orbits of the Earth, having traveled 86.5 million statute miles. O'Hara, during her tenure on the International Space Station of 6.5 months, saw the arrival of 8 visiting vehicles and the departure of 7 visiting vehicles, and she conducted 1 spacewalk totaling 6 hours and 42 minutes in duration, along with NASA astronaut Jasmine McBelly. The Soyuz, that is less than 30 minutes away from its return to Earth with O'Hara, Novitsky, and Vasilevskaya, launched last September 15th from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, with O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub on board. Kononenko and Chub will and are remaining on board the International Space Station as members of the Expedition 71 crew, Kononenko being the commander of the International Space Station. He soon will pass the 1,000-day mark in space for total time by any human being, more than any other human who has ever flown in space. That 1,000-day milestone to be reached on June 4th. Kononenko and Chub will return to Earth in September with NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson, who launched on March 23rd with Novitsky and Vasilevskaya. We're about 3 minutes away from the planned time for the module separation. This will occur at an altitude of 87 miles above the Earth.
Есть запуск программы разделения, есть L5 управляемый спуск, есть АУС на формате спуск.
Elga is confirmed. Spusк is confirmed on the display. Copy.
The Russian ballistics officers report that the commands have been issued for module separation. We're about 1 minute away from the planned pyrotechnic separation of the 3 sections of the Soyuz vehicle. We now have confirmation of the Soyuz module separation. It occurred on time as planned. So the descent module with O'Hara, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya strapped in their seats, now flying on its own, targeting the landing site to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, touchdown 25 minutes away. We're about 2 minutes away from the descent module entering the Earth's atmosphere. That will occur at an altitude of 61.8 miles. At that point, the 3 crew members will begin to feel the effects of Earth's gravity against their bodies.
Incoherent.
So far, everything proceeding as planned for the return of Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya, some 23.5 minutes away from touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan. The weather is very nice for this time of the year at the landing site. Just a few clouds at 10,000 feet, winds light out of the southwest at about 6 knots. The temperature about 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The Soyuz should now be entering the Earth's atmosphere, the point called entry interface. In about a minute or so, the Soyuz should begin the period of peak heating in the plasma regime, as well as beginning entry guidance through its onboard computers targeting the landing site southeast of Zhezkazgan, where the Rosaviatsa search and recovery forces, as well as NASA and Roscosmos personnel, are about to arrive in a circular flying pattern, awaiting the Soyuz descending under its large parachute. As the Soyuz enters this plasma regime, think of it as a blackout period where the heat around the vehicle builds to about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. This will last for about 4 minutes or so. This is Mission Control Houston. Just 20 minutes now until the expected landing of the Soyuz MS-24 with Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya on board. The lack of communications from the crew on board the Soyuz is to be expected at this point until the Soyuz emerges from this plasma regime. Communications will be restored through the Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft at the landing site, relaying voice and data to the Russian mission controllers that you see there in the Russian mission control room for the International Space Station outside of Moscow. The Russian Mi-8 helicopters have arrived in the vicinity of the landing zone. Just about 18 minutes now until touchdown. We're about 4 minutes away from the anticipated command to begin the opening of the parachutes. That parachute deployment sequence is triggered by a barometric pressure sensor at an altitude of 41,000 feet. The main parachute cover is jettisoned by a series of pyros and springs that pulls out 2 extraction chutes, which in turn pulls out the drogue chute, which in turn pulls out the main chute. That all takes about 20 seconds to happen. Then, at an altitude of 21,000 feet, another pressure sensor starts a timer, triggering most of the remaining events in the landing sequence. Commands will be issued to jettison the heat shield, inhibit the entry thrusters, and to open valves to vent all the hydrogen peroxide fuel for the entry thrusters and the oxygen in the life support system tank. This from the ground is seen as a white vapor, which is normal. That's a combination of hydrogen peroxide and oxygen venting into the air. The purpose of this is to safe the vehicle for landing. The search and recovery forces and the RSC Energia personnel do not want hazardous gases to remain in the tanks when the soft landing thrusters fire just a couple of seconds before touchdown. This way, the ground support personnel can approach the vehicle without personal protection equipment.
Subject Moscow. Go ahead. The report on the descent. Yes, we started the descent. How do you feel? The crew feels great. Okay, copy. Can you give us the pressure in 781? Copy. Okay, guys. Congratulations. Descent continues.
That report from Oleg Novitsky, the Soyuz commander, that the crew is feeling great, just about 15 minutes before touchdown.
Can you give me the integral and discrete? Integral is somewhere at about half discrete negative. Half discrete negative. Copy. Wow, that's cool. T 10-0307, expect an OSPEP.
We are standing by for the command for shoot deploy. The main parachute, that large orange and white chute, covers an area of about 1,000 meters, slowing the Soyuz to a descent rate of 7.2 meters per second. The harnesses first allow the Soyuz to descend at a canted angle of about 30 degrees to expel heat, then we'll shift the Soyuz, rehooking it, if you will, to a straight vertical descent. We're standing by for visual confirmation from the search and recovery forces that the Soyuz is now descending under its parachute. Coming up on 12.5 minutes until touchdown. And there's the video on the front screen of the Russian Mission Control Center of the Soyuz under its main chute, and that white vapor that you see is the combination of hydrogen peroxide and oxygen being vented from the life support system tank. That is nominal. Time to touchdown, 11 minutes, 40 seconds. The large orange and white chute is fully reefed. The Soyuz descending at a nominal rate. Visual contact from the search and recovery forces. 11 minutes until touchdown. Now we're getting our full view of the Soyuz descending under its chute. The heat shield has been jettisoned. That is a radio beacon signal from the Soyuz used for tracking purposes for the search and recovery forces. 10 minutes until touchdown, everything going by the book. No issues reported. The Soyuz in great shape, as is the crew, as reported by Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky.
Copy. Yes. We can copy unintelligible.
Zhezkazgan. 438, 8-9 зона, космос передает на Zhezkazgan.
Unintelligible.
Пятый космос, 8-9 на Zhezkazgan. На Zhezkazgan. Космос 429-му. 429 космос. 423, 438 запрашивают. На Zhezkazgan следует.
2378. Operations nominal.
443, 438 на Zhezkazgan.
Unintelligible.
This is Mission Control Houston. Just about 8 minutes until touchdown. Under a cloudless sky over the steppe of Kazakhstan, the Soyuz descending at its nominal rate, the crew feeling good. According to Soyuz Commander Oleg Novitsky, Loral O'Hara seated to his right, Marina Vasilevskaya to his left.
Altitude
Altitude is
3,600.
3,600 meters above the ground. The search and recovery forces have voice communication with the crew, reporting that they all feel well.
We can see the vehicle.
906, следуйте за объектом.
36, please do follow. Copy.
Once the Soyuz touches down, the ground forces
Search and
already in
rescue,
place in
LD
all-terrain
request
vehicles will begin to drive toward the capsule as the Russian Mi-8 helicopters land in sequential fashion, just a few dozen feet away from the capsule itself, to begin the process of ensuring that the vehicle is safe, that no toxic gases are leaking from the vehicle before they begin the
Altitude
process of
is
extracting the
3,000.
crew.
How do you feel? Kazbek, this is Molnia. This is Kazbek. The altitude is 3,000. Copy.
3,000 meters off the deck, 6.5 minutes till touchdown.
Молния ответь. Часть космоса. Как вас молния вызывает? Не принимаете его, нет? Не услышал, кого вызывали.
It was not clear. Come again. This is the ground. What's the altitude? 2,800. Copy.
It's a balmy April day on the steppe of Kazakhstan, which is at this time of year almost like a straw-like surface. 60 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature to greet O'Hara, Novitsky and Vasilevskaya.
Высота 2000.
The altitude is 2,000.
2,000 meters off the ground, everything continuing to go very well. The Soyuz system's in good shape. The Soyuz descending at its nominal rate. Just a reminder, about 2 seconds before touchdown, you should see a puff of smoke. That's basically the soft landing engines firing in a final braking
We're
maneuver.
accompanying the vehicle.
The crew's seats will be cocked into an upright position to brace them for landing.
448, please establish contact with the vehicle. Kazbek, this is Molnia. This is Kazbek. Oleg, we are accompanying you. How do you feel? Excellent. The altitude is 1580.
906, 478. Приемы? Ответили, самочувствие норма, продолжаем сопровождение. 1500.
The altitude is 1500.
Just about 3.5 minutes away from touchdown, everything proceeding as planned. The Russian Mi-8 helicopters are circling the landing zone. The search and recovery forces have good communications with Novitsky aboard the Soyuz. He continues to report that the crew is feeling very well.
Высота 1100.
The altitude is 1100.
1,100 meters now before touchdown. Under 3 minutes until the homecoming for these 3 crew members.
Классный спуск, да?
What an excellent descent. Do you agree? Absolutely.
Так, высота 980.
The altitude is 980. Please tighten your straps.
Так, и после моей команды не разговариваем.
Just about 2 minutes until touchdown.
The altitude is 900.
900 meters off the ground.
Космос 472, 478.
Землю видно?
Can you see the ground? The altitude is 700.
Just over a minute until touchdown, 600 meters off the ground.
Космос 906. Группы 4 единицы подходим к объекту. Берем на сопровождение.
4 units are approaching the object. I can see the ground now. The altitude is 500 meters. Can you see a helicopter? No, I can't.
There is one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters circling the vicinity, another one. Once the Soyuz touches down, so will those helos in sequential fashion
350.
to begin the heart of the extraction process as they remove the crew from the descent module. We should see the horizon here any moment.
All right, we will be keeping silent here and waiting for the landing.
And we have touchdown. Touchdown at 2:17 a.m. Central Time, 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 12:17 p.m. at the landing site. Loral O'Hara back on terra firma after 204 days in space.
Принят посадочный 360. На свои места.
Please assume your positions.
Космос 429.
Cosmos to 429. 49.
29, занимайтесь четвертую зону, высота.
Let's go to zone 4. We are still here.
Once again, the Soyuz MS-24 back on Earth. A safe touchdown for Loral O'Hara, Oleg Novitsky, and Marina Vasilevskaya, following a flawless undocking from the International Space Station, the deorbit burn,
Your position.
and all of the entry activities tripped off in perfect fashion,
Your position, please land.
resulting in a landing at 2:17 a.m. Central Time, 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time.
Please assume your positions relative to the vehicle. Not relative to me, but relative to the vehicle. To Cosmos, what is the position of the object? It is on its side. Cosmos to 429.
Координаты запишите северные 47, 24, восточные 69, 39.
Please write down the coordinates.
47, 24.
4724 north.
And on the front screen of the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, the words Jest Posadka, they've landed, and a welcome home for Loral O'Hara, as well as for Marina Vasilevskaya and Oleg Novitsky.
Космос, передавайте от рядам 409. 409 вам Космос передает на Zhezkazgan. Мягкая посадка.
Statistics we have on board the International Space Station.
Joel, from flight director to director of human spaceflight in Russia to deputy ISS program manager to the ISS program manager, you've spent about 2 decades very closely involved in the evolution of NASA's relationship with Roscosmos, the European Space Agency, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency, in seeing the space station expand and flourish. What have been the major milestones you've seen during this time that has made the ISS the complex it is today?
You know, some of the coolest milestones that I think we've done as a partnership is, you know, first going from 3 crew members to 6 crew members, You add then a step up to the incorporation of the U.S. commercial crew vehicles and what we've been able to do with the SpaceX Dragons recently with the private astronaut missions, how we're incorporating more and more of the commercial aspect into the International Space Station. And, you know, one of the things that I like is when I look around the partnership, I see a lot of the ISS experience we have with our international partners moving on to our next programs, moving on to our exploration and taking the lessons learned and the expertise that we've gained on board the space station and playing that forward such that we can be even more successful as we look past the low Earth orbit.
The ISS today, when it's all said and done, has a lot of life left. But if you had to write the history book right now of the space station, what do you think its lasting legacy is going to be?
To me, the lasting legacy is the international cooperation. We have set the standard on what it takes to cooperate across the globe. You know, through the 25 years of International Space Station, we have incorporated activities from over 110 countries across the globe. And I think that when you look forward and you kind of look and write about the International Space Station, you're going to write about the international cooperation and what we've done as a human race.
You know, as they say in life, one door closes, another one opens, and today's landing is a fitting end, if not bittersweet for you possibly, to your tenure as ISS program manager. As you hand over the reins to Dana Weigel, your deputy, she'll become program manager. Your new job, a tough one, a challenging one, Deputy Associate Administrator for Space Operations. What do you foresee as your expanded role for NASA in your new position as we press ahead, not only with the International Space Station, but the Artemis program and all of the rest?
You know, I see my role as helping the team focus as we look at space station through the end of the decade. You know, what do we need to continue doing? What do we need to do on space station to help the exploration effort? What do we need to do to make that Artemis program even more successful? I see my new role as helping develop these commercialization activities, these new space stations that we want in low Earth orbit, and what we can do within the Space Operations Mission Directorate, and how to encourage that, to expand that, and do the best we can to make sure when we move forward with space station that the next programs are taking all our lessons learned, using those, and moving as quickly as they can as they develop forward.
Joel, it's been quite a ride and a pleasure to have come this far with you with lots more stories yet to come.
Rob, thank you very much. You guys have, this is an awesome team to work with. It's humbling. It's been an honor to do what I've been able to do. And I look forward to helping wherever I can in the future. So thank you very much.
Joel Montalbano, the ISS program manager, with us following the textbook landing of the Soyuz MS-24 as we await the resumption of video from the landing site as the recovery process will begin to extract the crew members from the descent module. And as they say, timing is everything as we now are back at the landing site, watching the beginning of the extraction of the crew, the search and recovery forces, the RSC Energia personnel on the scene to begin removing the crew members one by one. They'll be placed in chairs right by the capsule so that they can have a few minutes to regain their land legs.
Третий в эфире.
Yeah, I'm here in this location.
Again, the scene at the landing site where the Soyuz MS-24 touched down about 20 minutes ago.
What are you guys doing here?
You can see the 3 chairs set up for the crew members who will be extracted and placed in those chairs to have a few minutes to regain their land legs. They'll then be carried into a nearby inflatable medical tent for preliminary medical exams and to remove their Sokol launch and entry suits. In the blue flight suit that you see there, that's NASA chief photographer Bill Ingalls from NASA headquarters. He was aboard one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters to photograph the Soyuz descent and touchdown, now by the capsule, waiting for the crew to be extracted.
Can you please move away? We're on air live. Once again, the work continuing by the RSC Energia personnel to talk to the crew and run through the post-landing procedures. Novitsky in the center seat of the Soyuz descent module. On his right, Loral O'Hara. On his left, Marina Vasilevskaya, the 3 to be extracted just a short time from now. They'll be put in those chairs that you saw just a moment or two ago for a few minutes before they will be carried in those chairs to the nearby inflatable medical tent for post-landing medical tests and to change into more comfortable flight clothing. All right. Grab the leg and grab the arm.
Looks like everything is fine.
This should be the Soyuz commander, Oleg Novitsky. First out from the center seat. That makes the extraction of the other two much easier.
We are broadcasting straight to MCCM.
Лёх, удочку. Все, есть удочка.
Oleg Novitsky completing the fourth flight in his career, 545 days in space.
We have the sound. The second crew member is being extracted from the descent module.
The stark landscape of the Kazakh steppe as recovery operations are continuing with the extraction of the crew, all in good shape, according to Novitsky. Once again, Oleg Novitsky looking none the worse for wear after 14 days in space.
Could you please move a little bit away? Very gently, easy. The leg got stuck. Okay. Over there.
And Loral O'Hara now out of the Soyuz MS-24. O'Hara back on Earth after 204 days in space.
Дай сетку маску, у меня нету больше. Нету? А нету, говорите, меня? Нету? Ну ладно.
Be careful, there's a wire around here. All right. Please do not interfere with each other's actions.
And the crew's awaiting the extraction of Marina Vasilevskaya, the last one out. A very swift extraction process coming just 30 minutes after touchdown on the steppe of Kazakhstan, about 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan.
Be careful with her legs. Just move a little bit back. Breathe easy. Don't pant. Hold on just a little bit. Don't rush. There is no rush. All the hoses are through. Okay.
And here comes Marina Vasilevskaya, the Belarus spaceflight participant who wrapped up 2 weeks in space, 12 days aboard the International Space Station.
Easy, easy. Is your foot loose? So move a little bit back. Don't pant. Breathe easy.
А можно еще раз повернуть?
Could you please turn it our way?
Спасибо.
Thank you. All right, please grab her. Very careful with her leg. All right, got her.
Marina Vasilevskaya now out of the Soyuz MS-24. All 3 crew members enjoying sunshine and fresh air.
Just keep your distance. Please move away a little bit. A little further. Don't overcrowd, please. Take a couple of steps back. 2 more steps back, please, everyone.
Звук нормально, хороший, пойдет.
Have you done the tests? Yes.
Параметры сняли?
Just to recap, we are continuing to receive television from the landing site.
To move a little bit away. Hello, Marina.
The Soyuz MS-24 landed right on time at 2:17 a.m. Central Time, 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time, 12:17 p.m. at the landing site.
Pickles for you. Here you go. How do you feel? Marina, you look beautiful. Everyone is saying a big hello to you. You're our heroine. We are so proud of you. And we brought these flowers for you to say thank you to your heroic deed. And here's some juice. I'm overwhelmed with emotions. It's something incredible.
Все.
And I wish all people on earth to treasure and cherish what they have, because this is precious. We knew that we were awaited here on the ground, and I thank all people of Belarus. We had a lot of activities on board, and we actually wanted to stay a little longer, but it's great to be back. It was awesome to be on board the station.
Ее закрыли опять. Я тебе говорю, закрыли ее опять.
Thank you so very much. I'm so glad to see you all. So Marina, we all tried to bring you something, but are you hungry at this very moment? No, not at all. We just had breakfast. I'm just overwhelmed with emotions. I'm not hungry at all. I'm so glad to see you all. Thank you for your support. The weather is great. It's sunny. It's warm. We were actually praying to the steppe gods for this weather. Thank you all who supported me, who rooted for me. I feel excellent, feel great. I now understand why people want to be cosmonauts. When I saw this with my own eyes, I understood like why I'm here.
The crew answering a few questions from some of the members of the media gathered at the landing site. There's a wide view you can see in the background, a Russian Mi-8 helicopter, part of the Rosaviatsa Search and Recovery Force team. All three crew members out of the descent module, all feeling well, they report. Soon to be carried in those chairs to the nearby inflatable medical tent for medical exams and to change out of those so-called launch and entry
Oleg,
suits.
please say something for your relatives. No, I know that all of you guys have been watching my descent from the mission control. We feel awesome. Everything has been great. Thank you very much.
After the brief period of medical exams, the three crew members will be brought to three different helicopters for a 2-hour flight back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, where they will split up. Loral O'Hara boarding a NASA plane to fly back to Houston, while Novitsky and Vasilevskaya board a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft to fly back to their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow.
Marina, can you turn it our way? You can put it here.
Скажите, что прямой эфир.
Can you please tell them that we are live on air?
And a good view of Loral O'Hara with a thumbs up. Each of the crew members being presented with a Matryoshka doll, the stacking dolls that bear the resemblance of each crew member.
All right, you guys are good? Yes. All right. Не надо, спасибо.
Are you guys ready?
Вон, как положено. Вот здесь, да? Вот за аппаратом прямо. Далеко, да? Нет, есть где-то палатки 100 метров. Недалеко.
Is it long? Is it far away? No, it's not. It's about 100 meters away.
Я прошу прощения. Все, давай.
Беларусь отдай.
I was amazed to see our beautiful Earth from space.
Вечерний подарок, поэтому не пропустите. Что констатируем к этому моменту? Марина Василевская сейчас, она утопает в цветах. Мы, как настоящие белорусы, гостеприимные, хлебосольные, не могли приехать и сюда с пустыми руками, поэтому сейчас попрошу режиссера.
We came here from Belarus and covered Marina Vasilevskaya with flowers. Right now, we have the Belarus delegation, medical team, and other support personnel around Marina.
Нет, пускай еще поснимаю.
Marina is in excellent health.
Welcome home.
NASA astronaut Loral O'Hara flashing a smile. Back home after 204 days in space.
Place all three crew members closer to each other.
They're asking all the docs if it'd be okay to bring the chairs in closer a little bit.
Да, конечно, мешает, она в кадре прям. Ну, давай сюда. Ну что? Лех, назад немножко, тоже с удочкой, назад. Да, чуть-чуть. Ее опять закрыли.
So give us 2 to 3 minutes. Marina, how can you compare launch and landing? I can't really, they're very different. During launch, you can feel the rocket, the launch vehicle, it's rumbling, it's vibrating, it's amazing. And then after about 10 minutes, you feel that you're in weightlessness. And when you land, the parachute deployment is a big deal, and you feel it.
Все, начинают командировать.
All right, they will be starting transporting the crew commander. Please make way.
And now the process of bringing the crew members one by one in their chairs to the nearby inflatable medical tent, Novitsky first.
Be very careful, there are some wires on the ground.
And in a tradition, Novitsky signing his name to his Soyuz spacecraft.
Thank you for your work. All right, I'm done. Please sit in your seat.
Шнурок сзади. Друг другу не мешай.
Oleg Novitsky being carried, as is the tradition, into the inflatable medical tent nearby, where he will undergo initial medical exams and change into more comfortable clothing, removing his Sokol launch and entry suit.
All right, let's
Loral O'Hara up next.
carry her to the tent.
There's Vasilevskaya.
Oh yeah. Have you ever had a ride like this? Never. First time in my life.
So you've been watching a video from the landing site where Soyuz MS-24 touched down at 2:17 a.m. Central Time, 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time. It was a perfect landing, all of the undocking, and there's a replay of the Soyuz under the chutes that we saw live less than an hour ago. The Soyuz landing, you'll see the soft landing engines fire and the parachute reefing. And there was touchdown, 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, bringing home Loral O'Hara of NASA after 204 days in space, Soyuz commander Oleg Novitsky, who completed his fourth flight into space with an aggregate total of 545 days to his credit, and Belarus spaceflight participant Marina Vasilevskaya. Once again, the crew members now in the inflatable medical tent that is erected close to the capsule itself. They will receive preliminary medical exams, get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits, and then they'll be placed in 3 helicopters, one for each crew member, to fly 2 hours back to the staging city of Karaganda, Kazakhstan, where O'Hara will board a NASA plane bound for Houston. Novitsky and Vasilevskaya will climb aboard a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft to fly back to their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. So with Soyuz MS-24 safely back on Earth and the 3 crew members in good shape, next up, an astronomical phenomenon that doesn't occur every day, the well-publicized and much anticipated total solar eclipse that will cross the United States on Monday, April 8th. NASA television will provide end-to-end coverage of the eclipse beginning at 12 noon Central Time on Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with locations throughout the United States participating in the revelry of this rarely seen event where the moon will pass directly in front of the sun, creating darkness in areas of the United States that will be